The past is rarely quiet. Good. It echoes with war, with triumph, with the cries of kings and the march of armies. Bah, not all of history was loud. Some corners of it were nearly silent. Tonight, we journey not into the roar of battle, but into the hush of cloisters. Could. Into cold stone hallways, lit by flickering candlelight. Into a world shaped by routine, repetition, and silence. Okay? It is the world of the medieval monk. A life where every hour is measured, every word controlled, and every desire could set aside. Good. In this episode, we begin in the pre-dawn darkness of a monastery, where your day starts not with sunrise, but with bells. We'll walk through the routine of a monk's life, then explore the strange and brilliant legacy of one woman who saw visions behind convent walls. We'll slip into the secret scriptoriums where precious texts were preserved against the tide of time. And finally, we'll leave the monastery gates. Could. To join a nobleman at his feast table, where the contrast in food, speech, and daily rhythm could not be more striking. But first, let's imagine yourself not in a soft bed, but on a thin straw mattress, wrapped in rough wool, and woken not by light, but by duty. You wake before sunrise, not once, not twice, but in a rhythmic, low tolling that cuts through the dark. Good. It is 3 a.m. Time for Matins, the first of 7 daily prayers. Good. You rise in the cold. There is no fire in your cellone. The heavy smell of damp stone and the stiff ache of your limbs. Your blanket is thin, your robe coarse. Good. The air bites your fingers as you dress. There is no speaking not now. Not yet. Silence is expected. Always. You shuffle with the others down. Narrow halls. Coo. Your soft leather shoes whispering against the flagstones. Candles sputter against the draft, casting wavering shadows along the walls. The chapel awaits. Good. Cold. Open. Reverent. Cue. Kneel. Back straight. Eyes down. The chant begins. Soft Latin syllables drift slowly upward, like breath on frost. You do not sing with joy but with discipline. This is your offering. Your work is prayer. After an hour or more, you file out again, still in silence, still in cold. Coo. You may sleep for a short while. Go! Or go straight to the next task. Manual labor in the garden, tending vegetables, chopping wood, hauling water. All with care and quiet. Then comes copying. You sit at a wooden desk in the scriptorium. Could the light from the windows is pale. A single candle may flicker beside you. The ink is thick, sticky. You sharpen your quill. Coo. You lower your head. You begin to copy a manuscript in Latin. Word by word, line by line. Every stroke must be perfect. There is no room for error. The silence stretches around you, broken only by the scratching of quills. The occasional cough, could, or the creak of the wooden bench beneath you. You must not doze. You must not sigh. Could. You must not think of the outside world. Your mind is meant to be still, like the surface of a pond. At noon, the bell rings again. Nanda. Midday prayer. Then the meal. It is simple. A bowl of lentils. A piece of coarse bread. Perhaps sif. It's a feast. Dea. Little cheese. Bah! Even here, you do not speak. Listen. One monk reads aloud from scripture as the rest. Eat. You chew slowly. You do not look up. Could. You do not speak, laugh, or comment on the taste. This is not a meal to be enjoyed. Diggest nourishment. And nothing more. The rhythm continues afternoon prayers, more work, more study, perhaps some quiet reading. Evening falls. The final prayer of the day, you return to your cell. You may write a few notes in your book of hours, or simply sit in silence, reflecting on your failures and your obedience. You lie down again, not in comfort, but in acceptance. You do not seek warmth or luxury, only quiet, only routine. Could. Only God. Gah, the year is 1148. You are a young monk, living at the Abbey of Dis. Life here follows the rhythms of prayer and work. The hours are long. The rules are strict. And yet there is beauty in the routine. The psalms you chant have echoed through these stone halls for generations. Bah! But something is coming. A change in the air. Good. A delegation from the Bishop of Worms has arrived. They have come for a young nun named Hilda. You may think a life of prayer and solitude is a silent life. Could. And in the medieval church, many women who dedicated themselves to God did live in silence. But not all monastic lives were lived in perfect obedience. Not all. Silence was submission. Some voices, though gentle, refused to be quiet. Tonight, we turn to one such voice. A woman born into the rigid world of medieval religious life, who from behind stone walls reached across centuries. Her name was Hildegard of Bingen. She was born in 1098, the 10th child of a noble family in the Rhineland. Good. As was customary, her fate was sealed early. God! At the age of just 8, she was given to the church in offering to God. Not as a nun, but as an anchoress. A kind of holy recluse. She was enclosed within a small cell beside a Benedictine monastery. Walls surrounded her. Time passed differently. Her world became one of constant prayer, fasting, and visions. From childhood, Hildegard claimed she could see divine light. Strange illuminations, images, and messages, she said, came directly from God. For years, she kept them hidden, out of fear, out of obedience. But eventually, she began to write. Imagine her at a low table, candlelight, warming the edge of her ink. She leans over a piece of parchment, not to copy, but to create. Her Latin is clear, strong, her thoughts bolder still. She describes visions filled with cosmic light, wheels within wheels, the female face of wisdom, the breath of creation. It is not dry doctrine, but poetry. Carr, most famous collection, Civius, or no, The Ways, was dictated under divine inspiration. It combined theology, natural philosophy, and symbolic imagery, all from a woman the world expected to remain silent. Hildegard was not only a visionary, she was a composer. She wrote music, dozens of chants and hymns, unlike anything in the monasteries around her. Soaring melodies that lifted the soul. She studied plants and medicine. She wrote about the balance of the humors. She advised kings, emperors, even the Pope, all while remaining, technically, within the confines of cloistered life. She founded her own convent, moved her nuns away from male control, refused to let Hildegard be silenced. Correspondence with the powerful was extensive, and yet she always wrote from the position of divine authority, not political ambition. She warned, gently but firmly. She chided bishops. She interpreted dreams. She acted as a prophet, not for herself, but for God. Later in life, she faced censure. Her convent refused to allow the burial of an excommunicated man on its grounds. Church officials demanded submission. She resisted, calmly, but completely. She was temporarily forbidden to sing, to preach, to write, but the ban did not last, and her music returned. Her writing spread. Her memory endured. In 2012, more than 800 years after her death, Hildegard was officially named a Doctor of the Church by the Vatican, a rare title reserved for saints whose writings shaped the faith itself. She had lived behind walls, but her voice had traveled far beyond them. Hildegard von Bingen, a woman who dared to speak when others would have been silent. A writer, a thinker, a visionary, a saint. Join us next time as we continue our series exploring the rich tapestry of medieval life. See you soon. Beneath the quiet routine of monastic life, beneath the chants and the prayers, there were secrets, not the kind whispered between cloister walls, but those bound in parchment and ink words. Ideas, knowledge, thought too dangerous, too old, or too foreign. Could tonight we slip into the hush of the scriptorium, that sacred, shadowy room where monks, hooded in patient, cupped books by hand, could. And not just the Bible, not just saints' lives or prayers, but ancient Greek philosophy, Arabic astronomy, even pagan poetry, books that had been banned, books that had been burned, books that somehow survived because a few chose to preserve them. Imagine it now. A vaulted room with narrow windows, dust hanging in golden shafts of afternoon light, desks of thick oak, benches worn smooth, candles flickering low. You hear only the scratching of quills, the gentle breath of parchment turning, and perhaps the distant toll of a bell. This is the scriptorium. It is not a place for chatter or questions, only for transcription, repetition, and silence. The process is slow, painstaking. A single book can take a year to copy. Each letter shaped with intention, each illumination painted with Kirtini angels in margins, gold leaf hallowing their heads. Sometimes, what was being copied raised eyebrows. Aristotle, Plato, Hippocrates. Texts that came from a world before Christ or outside his teachings, but they were copied anyway. Because knowledge, even forbidden knowledge, had weight. Monks sometimes encoded these works within religious texts, or hid them behind false covers. A herbal guide might include sections on anatomy drawn from Arabic medical texts. A commentary on Psalms might include notes on geometry or astronomy. Scribes walked a fine line. Some worked under orders, selectively preserving what the abbot approved. Gadas worked in quiet defiance, preserving what they feared might disappear forever. They rarely signed their names, butting the margins. Sometimes, they left messages. A small note in Latin. Cold fingers. Dim light. Another. Please, let this be the last page. Simple laments, tucked into centuries of wisdom. And it wasn't just theology or science. Some monks copied poet Virgil, Ovid Elegant, flowing Latin from Rome's pagan past. Others copied medical texts from the Islamic world, marveling at unfamiliar treatments and foreign herbs. The Church's attitude toward these works was inconsistent. Sometimes they were tolerated as curiosities, sometimes embraced as useful, sometimes condemned as heresy, which is why many were hidden, locked behind wooden panels, stored beneath monastery floors, or disguised written between the lines of innocuous prayer books. In Ireland, in Italy, in remote alpine valleys, manuscripts were smuggled across borders, moved by mule, protected by silence. Some scriptoriums became quiet sanctuaries of rebellion, where the act of copying a line of Aristotle became a quiet protest. Bay refusal to let the old world be lost to fire in time? And so, through centuries of darkness and change, through invasion, collapse, plague, and reform, the books survived, not because they were cherished by kings, but because they were cherished by monks, tired, cold, devoted scribes who believed that writing something down was the best way to keep it alive. You've spent days in the monastery. Good! You've tasted the stillness, the routine, the silence. Now step outside those stone walls, ride east, perhaps, or south, along a muddy cart path, till the land rises into gentle hills, and a large manor house emerges, timbered, fortified, loud with dogs and shouting. Good? This is no cloister. This is no retreat. Good. This is a nobleman's hall. And tonight, he's hosting a feast. Here, the air smells not of old vellum and beeswax, but of roasting meat and sweet-spiced wine. Boar turns slowly on a spit. Coo! Sizzles in a pan of fat. Bread bakes in the ovens, its crust blackened. Just so imagine yourself stepping into the great hall. The rushes on the floor are fresh, though a bit damp. The hearth blazes above you. Banners hang faded from sun, stained from smoke. Laughter, loud voices, the bark of hounds, the clink of goblets. The nobleman sits at the center of a long wooden table, flanked by his stewards, knights, and favored guests. His robes are thick, lined with fur. His rings catch the light. Servants move quickly barefoot, careful balancing trenchers of meat and pitchers of ale. The contrast with monastic life is immediate, where monks eat in silence, nobles feast in spectacle. Where monks eat lentils, nobles eat venison, capons, blood sausage, eels, soaked in vinegar and spices, eggs dyed with saffron, custards flavored with almond and honey. One dish is shaped like a swanet's feathers reattached after roasting for appearance only. Another called subtleties, molded from sugar and marzipan to resemble a castle or a lion. This is not just food. Status. Proof of wealth and power. Wine flows freely, ported. Expensive ale is served by the bucket. Water! Rarely. And the noise constant. A harp strums in the corner. Coo. A young boy recites poetry, haltingly. A juggler tosses knives, followed by a tumbler performing tricks. Every moment of the feast is a display. Not just of food or hospitality, but of dominance. Good to eat richly is to show that one can waste food is, paradoxically, a sign of strength. The scraps go to the dogs, or to the poor, waiting outside in the dark, cupping their hands for the leftovers. Guests gossip about war, about land, about marriages yet to be arranged. Names are spoken titles recited like charms. This is where power moves. It may look like laughter and gluttony, but alliances are being shaped with every shared goblet. Fortunes rise and fall with each course. The feast may last hours. At its end, tables are cleared by servants with rough claws and weary eyes. The nobleman retires to a chamber lined with fur blankets, perhaps warmed with braziers of charcoal. And across the field, miles away, in the quiet, dark monastery, a monk kneels for midnight prayer, his meal long forgotten, one life of scarcity, one of excess. Both bound by rhythm, both dictated by time and place and class. And as the candles burn low, whether in chapel or hall, the world prepares for sleep. Even history quietly rests. Thank you for watching, and thank you for being a part of this journey. We've made history come alive through stories like this one. If you want to help us bring even more history to life, please consider supporting us. Your support will help us keep our content free for everyone forever.